Number 5 on this list is SCP-920. Now, SCP-920 is one of the most interesting SCPs that I've ever come across. It appears as a man with no determinable age and no physical features that would make one believe that there's anything out of the ordinary. The mannerisms of SCP-920 though, and the effect that it has on other people is what makes it so unique. SCP-920 likes to walk, and I mean more than most people. It is to our knowledge continually walking at any given point with no discernible destination. Now, the destination can't be figured out because SCP-920 doesn't even know what it is. It's believed that SCP-920 is unable to control its movements and just moves throughout the world with no end in sight. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, this doesn't sound that bad, just a creature that is really lost, why can't we contain it? Well, SCP-920 comes with some complications. Not only is it completely lost with no sense of direction or purpose, but if you get close enough to it, then you will also become completely lost as well. No one knows how long you need to be in contact with SCP-920 or the warning signs of this happening, just that it will assuredly take place if you attempt to follow it, move it, or guide it somewhere, and there have been many attempts at doing this. They had plans to take SCP-920 to Site 207. However, when their dispatched personnel contained him in their van and started transferring him over, they eventually got too lost to continue and they had to be rescued from the mission from other individuals. They've tried to guide SCP-920 before, leading it to the location, but whenever they do this, it becomes far too lost and always wanders off somewhere else. It's for this reason that it is impossible to contain this being, and they simply just have to monitor where it is on the planet. Now, it should be noted that along with great human negligence, SCP-920 can also induce radar glitches, clouds to appear, and in some rare cases, natural disasters to occur. However, SCP-920 has no ill will towards humans and does not seek to harm anyone, just simply to walk around the planet, and therefore the SCP Foundation is okay with just letting it do so. Number 4 on this list is SCP-1959. Now, SCP-1959 is currently uncontained and basically impossible to contain based on where it's located. Orbiting around the Earth at a very rapid rate, SCP-1959 appears as a white spacesuit that is similar to the ones that the Soviets wore during their space expeditions. Now, could it have been possible that there's a spacesuit just floating around? I suppose so, but what makes this unique is the fact that it's basically indestructible. It does have some cracks on the visor, but other than that, this thing cannot be broken. In fact, it has been noted that SCP-1959 can break through any object in its trajectory. If a rock is in its way, then bam, that rock is now flying through space while SCP-1959 remains unharmed and its pathway unchanged. This is another reason why containing this thing would be basically impossible, because it's in space and you have no way of slowing down its trajectory since it will simply crash through anything that tries to slow it down. Authorities have attempted to communicate with SCP-1959, but there has been no success so far. Nothing has come back in return. With no responses coming back and just a spacesuit flying through space, it's hard to tell if this is a creature or just an object on a strange path. That being said though, there has been some sort of life to this being. Very rarely, it has been noted as stopping its trajectory and waiting for a moment before starting up again. It has also been seen as frantically pulling at its visor, so there's actually been some lifelike movement from this creature. Potentially this is some sort of person who is trapped by an unknown force in space and can't get out of this continual loop. Whatever is causing this, I'm sad to report that we probably won't get any answers for a long period of time, considering just how difficult it would be to actually facilitate a mission to stop or help SCP-1959. Number 3 on this list is SCP-2521. Imagine having no idea where you are, where you came from, what your purpose is. You don't know what your name is or if you have a family. You can't remember a time when you weren't perpetually unsure of yourself, your life, or how you came to be. That is basically what SCP-2521 deals with every day. It is said to be almost twice the size of a human, however the form it takes is very unlike that of a human being. It has long, black, sticky rope-esque things coming off of its body, almost like stringy fabric things that you'd get from ripped jeans. This covers the entire being, and it's currently unknown whether this is the entire entity or if beneath these stringy tentacles there's a physical form. I also shouldn't use the word tentacles because it implies a heavy weight to this creature, but that isn't the case at all. These black ribbons flow in the wind, and based on the nature of SCP-2521's abilities, I wouldn't be surprised if it had no weight to it at all. Now, SCP-2521 cannot be caught because it can phase through any walls or material of its choosing. It almost feels as if this being can teleport, but that isn't the case. It is simply the truest form I can think of a phantom. SCP-2521 has no idea where it came from, why it's on this planet to begin with. To our knowledge, there's no known family to this creature, and it is the only one of its kind. Because of all this, SCP-2521's goal in life is very simple: discover more about itself. An experiment was ran where a D-class personnel was told to draw a picture of SCP-2521 and talk about it. Whilst that D-class personnel was doing this, SCP-2521 appeared and showed affection to the drawing and the person describing it. It's believed that it seeks out new information about itself and is constantly on the hunt to learn more about its origin. The good thing for us though is that it's not violent and it seems relatively calm, although its form would certainly frighten anyone if you saw it in person. Number 2 on this list is SCP-1000. Now, SCP-1000, as I'm going to call it, is an interesting entry on this list as it's not a singular being, but actually an entire species. Classified in the hominini branch, this is a species of ape that is very large and omnivorous. The colors of these apes range from gray to brown all the way to white, and their body type resembles a gorilla. The intelligence of these creatures are similar to that of a standard chimpanzee. The reason that you probably haven't heard about these creatures is because a massive amount of their species was wiped out roughly 10 years ago by a disease that ravaged their kind. It's estimated that less than 5% of the species survived this and had to develop an immunity to it. Now, there's another reason you probably haven't heard of this creature as well, and that's because many of the people who would have seen it are dead. Unlike our standard gorilla or ape that you find at the zoo, SCP-1000 has a very unique ability to it. It's said that if you observe this creature, that you have a chance of suffering an immediate death right there and right then. That your entire brain will shut down, and any functionality you had will be completely gone. It's estimated that looking at this creature once has just a 2% chance of doing this to you, but the longer that you linger, the higher that percentage rises. Basically, if you ever want to see one of these things in real life, you are playing a very dangerous game of Russian roulette. Now, the one positive about this creature is that they apparently don't like human encounters and prefer to live undisturbed. If you did want to seek one of them out, then you can find them in the Pacific Northwest of North America or in the Himalayan mountains. Because they are so spread out though, and it's a whole species, and due to the effects that they have on humans, it is currently impossible to fully contain SCP-1000 completely. We just have to hope that they stick to the mountains, because if one of these got loose in the city, then the death toll would be astronomical. Number 1 on this list is SCP-1440. SCP-1440 appears as a very old man with a long white beard and very simplistic clothing. I mention its clothing items because these things never change, and they'd be unable to change even if it wanted to do so. The origin of SCP-1440 is currently unknown, and authorities are unsure if the being itself is even cognizant of where it came from or how it came to be. Whenever asked about its origin, it completely shuts down and declines to answer, so it either doesn't know or doesn't want to speak on the subject. During the time that we've been aware of SCP-1440, which has been over 50 years now, it has not shown any signs of visibly aging, maintaining that same image and clothes the entire time. Now, SCP-1440 is not destructive in nature and doesn't have any evil intentions. However, that doesn't stop it from causing serious damage to everything around it. If SCP-1440 has any long-term interactions with a man-made item, that item will inevitably break. Now, this could be anything. It could be a cup, a car, a building. Literally anything that was made by humans. If this creature is in contact with it for longer than a few days, it will eventually get destroyed. And this isn't just limited to items. In fact, it extends to the people themselves as well. If you have extended exposure to SCP-1440, you will eventually die, and there is nothing that you can do to stop it. Now, the creature seems to be aware that this is their ability, and because it is generally kind in nature, attempts to avoid humans when it can. It is regularly traveling though, and will run into humans eventually, but as long as it isn't in one place or with one person for too long, it shouldn't be much of a problem. Due to the nature of this ability though, catching it is impossible because the containment site and anybody operating it will inevitably be destroyed. Number 5 on this list is SCP-966. SCP-966 is a very disturbing type of creature that needs to be caught. The SCP Foundation describes them as predatory creatures that resemble hairless humans possessing an elongated face with a mouth lined with needle-like teeth. On each hand, they have 5 claws that can be up to 20 centimeters long. Although sharp, these are easily broken, making them unfit for combat. SCP-966's height ranges from 1.4 to 1.6 meters, and they can reach up to 30 kilograms in weight. Physically, SCP-966 are weak, possessing hollow bones and low muscular density. They do not seem to rest through sleep. Instead, they will suddenly cease all movement at seemingly random intervals of time, resuming normal activity 3 to 5 minutes later. Now, those creatures don't sound very appealing to me, and even though they have weak bones, they aren't something that I'd want to have a run-in with by myself. And my instincts hold true because humans are on the menu for SCP-966. The problem is the way that they hunt. Because they're so frail, a head-on attack isn't how they get their prey. They need to be a lot more stealthy. So what they do instead is emit a very high-pitched frequency that won't allow the individual hearing it to engage in any sleep at all. This applies to REM sleep all the way to microsleep. It's said that the range of this high-pitched frequency is 20 meters, and once you're hit with it, there's no going back. SCP-966 will then stalk you until your exhaustion incapacitates you to a point where it can safely attack and consume you. Along with exhaustion, this high-pitched frequency can also bring on vivid hallucinations and sharp changes in someone's temperament. So far, there's been no cure for being hit with this frequency, so even if you're capable of finding SCP-966 and killing it before you get too tired, you'll be doomed to live the rest of your life without sleep, which is effectively a death sentence anyways. Ever since this SCP has been discovered, the numbers have been thinned, but there's still many of them on the loose and at large. Number 4 on this list is SCP-3129. SCP-3129 is a very strange SCP that can't really ever be caught because it's just a phenomenon that occurs. That being said, we need to develop some way to either catch it or stop it from happening because it's very detrimental to our society. There are 3 stages to this SCP. The first stage, as described by the Foundation, is when phenomena invariably focus upon a human male aged somewhere between 40 and 50, hereafter designated SCP-3129-1. SCP-3129 transmissions can vary in presentation and length wildly, but invariably remain on the topic of SCP-3129-1's apparent election bid. No instances of SCP-3129 have been found outside of the continental United States or present in any non-English languages. So stage 1 is basically something that occurs on television and appears to those who are watching. Stage 2, as described by the Foundation, begins after 2 to 4 weeks of exposure to stage 1 phenomena. Up to 8% of viewers will become fixated upon SCP-3129-1. Civilians more politically aligned with the ideas presented in SCP-3129 commercials are more susceptible to infection. SCP-3129 adverts have not shown any overall political bias. Class B amnestics are effective at treating stage 2 infection. Now, the final stage that the Foundation describes is an infection displaying fanatical devotion to SCP-3129-1. They argue with open hostility against opposing viewpoints and ideologies. Stage 3 infected tend to seek out other infected in person and by way of online message boards and communities. This SCP isn't as dangerous as some of the others on this list to our health, but to our society, it's by far the most detrimental. Whatever or whoever SCP-3129 chooses to support, those who witness its occurrence will also feel extremely passionate about the same thing. It's effectively a brainwashing tool that no one is in control of. This SCP completely destroys any sense of democracy and takes away our human free will. I don't know how you could catch something like this, but finding a way to identify it when it happens and interfere with the broadcast, I mean, that's definitely something that we need to be looking into. Number 3 on this list is SCP-169. SCP-169 is one of the SCPs on this list that has the potential to kill millions if it's so desired. The Foundation describes this creature as a marine arthropod of enormous size known as the Leviathan by generations of sailors and oral history. Presumed at first to be a myth, SCP-169 was detected by Mobile Task Force Gamma-6 during an investigation of paranormal activity around the archipelago. During Y6's investigation, a doctor whose name they don't reveal discovered the archipelago to have moved at least 3 kilometers from its original location. Though initially the doctor believed this motion to be due to unusually quick continental drift, a reconnaissance mission performed by the USS revealed the archipelago to be the protrusions of rock-like plates covering an enormous organic mass. The Foundation was brought in immediately to begin threat management. The Foundation goes on to say that they think this arthropod's size is somewhere between 2,000 to 8,000 kilometers long. The Foundation does not specify which archipelago they're talking about, but they do say that if this arthropod was to go deeper into the ocean or the earth, then all these islands would sink as well. The one positive thing about all of this is that the creature is thought to only breathe once every 3 months. This has led experts to believe that it's in a dormant state and it's not fully awake right now. If it did ever become fully awake and aware, then who knows what this creature is capable of doing. I live in Ontario, and the north to south distance of this province is 1,691 kilometers, meaning that this creature could be 2, 3, or even 4 times the size of Ontario. I doubt we'd ever be able to fully catch this beast based on how big it is, but some means of containment, I mean, that would definitely be nice. Number 2 on this list is SCP-3310. SCP-3310 is honestly not much to look at all. In fact, it's just a tree stump that's floating in a lake. But it's what that tree stump can cause that makes it so dangerous. The Foundation describes SCP-3310 as a 9-meter tall tree stump floating in Crater Lake. SCP-3310 is anomalously able to float upright with approximately 1.2 meters of the top remaining above the water at any given time. If removed from the water and returned, SCP-3310 will return to this position. SCP-3310 floats around Crater Lake as a result of non-anomalous weather patterns. The restriction of this movement causes 2 distinct and possibly linked anomalous phenomena referred to as SCP-33101 and SCP-33102. Previously, activation events were caused by the removal of SCP-3310 from Crater Lake, but recent activation events have occurred while SCP-3310 remained in Crater Lake. Both of these phenomena demanifest after the triggering cause for the manifestation is ended. Now, the first of these phenomena that the Foundation is referring to will cause a great fog to appear over the surrounding areas with torrential rainfalls. In some of the events that have happened, over 3 meters of water have rained down in a very short amount of time, causing massive flooding. The second phenomena has several unknown humanoid entities appear and flock to this tree stump. The entities change depending on the time this happens, and no one has any idea who or what they are. This is why this SCP needs to be stopped and captured. Floods aren't great, but we can deal with those. The entities and what they are capable of, though, is completely unknown to us. One time this happens, they may decide to attack us humans, and without any knowledge of their strength, we might not be able to stop them. For now, we can at least take comfort that we know where this SCP will be, but capturing and containing it should be at the forefront of the Foundation's mind. Number 1 on this list is SCP-973. SCP-973 is a very unique SCP that only manifests itself on a 60-kilometer stretch of highway, but it's certainly one of the deadliest that I've come across. The SCP Foundation describes this as being 2 entities. SCP-931 is a police cruiser resembling those used by state troopers in the early 1970s. The vehicle appears to be in an advanced state of disrepair. Eyewitnesses' accounts have consistently mentioned large dents in the doors and hood, a heavily cracked windshield, heavy rusting, and a loose rear bumper secured with duct tape. SCP-932 is reported as a Caucasian male in his late 40s wearing a state trooper uniform dating from the same time period as SCP-9731. Subject is described as balding, slightly overweight, and having a handlebar mustache. Now, nobody knows for sure how this SCP came to be. Some people speculate that this was an old police officer who died along this road and now haunts it. If that is the case, though, he was very serious about his job because he only shows up on this highway highway for a very specific event. It needs to be at night, it needs to be on the stretch of highway, and there needs to be somebody driving along that road who's going above the speed limit. If all of those things are met, then SCP-973 has the potential to materialize and will begin chasing down the person driving. While this is happening, the target's radio will simultaneously start malfunctioning and repeating over and over again, "Run." Over the years, 34 bodies have been found and 19 vehicles have been discovered. I would go into detail about how these bodies were discovered, but it's honestly so graphic that YouTube would definitely flag this video. There have only been 5 survivors and they've all had serious mental trauma from this experience. I'm not sure how you'd catch SCP-973, but something has to be done to stop these brutalistic deaths from continuing. Number 5 on this list is SCP-2846-A. SCP-2846 is actually a set of events that occur in the Gulf Atlantic region in the Atlantic Ocean. However, when I specify it as being SCP-2846-A, now we're referencing a very dangerous creature that has to be caught. I'm talking about a massive octopus-like being that is almost 1,000 meters in length. To put that in perspective for you guys, a blue whale, the largest living creature on the planet that we know of, is 30 meters in length when it's at its biggest. So this octopus is roughly 33 times bigger than a blue whale. It is truly absolutely massive. This creature is a menace as well as its preferred meal is human. Being as big as it is capable of taking down an entire cruise ship and dragging its victims to the bottom of the ocean with it. This creature is thought to have existed for thousands and thousands of years, but it's hard to know a lot about it considering how difficult it is to study. Whenever it does appear though, we at least have a response team that can subdue it for a while. This is SCP-2846-B and refers to a massive Navy ship that would be considered a super dreadnought. This ship will appear when there have been reports of SCP-2846-A and will be able to fend it off, stopping it from doing any further damage. However, the problem with this is that most of the damage has already been done. By that point, the cruise ship or chosen target will have already been annihilated by this aquatic monster, and hundreds to thousands of lives could have been lost in the process. If we want to stop the death of these people, then we need to make it a priority to catch this being and lock it up for good. Obviously that's easier said than done though, because 33 blue whales in length it's a pretty powerful creature. Number 4 on this list is SCP-610. The problem with SCP-610 is that it's extremely easy to catch, and that's what makes it so hard to deal with. SCP-610 is not necessarily a creature or demon, but actually a disease. It is a skin disease that causes an array of problems for the infected individual. The disease first appeared in Russia, and some believe that the Russian government had some sort of connection to its origin. Regardless of where it came from though, it is now in several areas all throughout some parts of Europe and a lot of Asia. Many of these areas are locked down where you're unable to enter them. However, authorities believe that it is still relatively uncontained and rampant in areas that we currently don't even know about. The symptoms associated with SCP-610 are pretty drastic, and classifying it as a skin disease, it's a little bit of an understatement. The first symptoms are a rash, some itching, a few blemishes. It's nothing too major, but then you start to scar. Big, painful lesions will appear around your chest and stomach. Sunlight will hurt you, and your skin will feel as if it's burning. Then, once the full infection has taken over your body, which can actually be in a matter of minutes, you will die. But that's not the end of your story. You will be without life for 3 minutes, but then your body will automatically restart. The scar tissue will start to move all around your body, and human features will leave you. It will start to take over your entire body and manipulate it in weird ways. Extra limbs might grow, your head might become misshapen, your face may no longer be your face anymore. All features that once made you will be totally gone. It's currently unknown how much of your mind this disease takes, but it has been noted that your personality is forever gone and you can't possibly be functioning at the same capacity that you were before. It is said that any human contact with somebody who is infected will lead you to become infected, and this is why SCP-610 has to be contained. If a major outbreak ever hit a populated city, then the whole world could be at risk. Number 3 on this list is SCP-2399. SCP-2399 is once again not necessarily a singular creature, but could certainly be run by one. It's actually a structure not present on Earth, but on Jupiter. said to be located in Jupiter's lower atmosphere in what we have come to know as the Great Red Spot. This is a mechanical structure with some extremely advanced technology. It apparently has access to antimatter-based weaponry, which can create spatial disruptions and change the atmosphere. In fact, the Great Red Spot on Jupiter is a massive raging hurricane, but people believe that this was created by SCP-2399. Now, right now, we don't believe that SCP-2399 is operating at its full potential and could be damaged in some sort of fashion. Computer simulations suggest that it's just over halfway functional and is trying to repair itself. What caused it to be slightly broken or not fully completed, that's unknown, but we have seen multiple drones circulate the space around it trying to repair it as needed. Experts have tried to contact SCP-2399 but haven't received any communication back. This thing is so scary due to its potentially limitless power. It is so technologically advanced that the people studying it don't think that we'd ever be able to destroy it or even remotely stand a chance in a fight with it. They already believe that it has the capability to ravage our entire planet in a manner that we can't even understand. Considering Earth is actually smaller than Jupiter's red spot, that means that SCP-2399 is, at the very least, capable of conjuring a hurricane bigger than our planet. This SCP might never be able to be caught, but based on what it's capable of doing, it has to be. Number 2 on this list is SCP-871. SCP-871 is a collection of cakes, like birthday cakes, cupcakes, tiny little pastries. Okay, I know, it sounds ridiculous, but hear me out on this one. SCP-871 is a collection of 237 cakes to be exact. Now, as I said, they can vary in types of cakes, but they will always be a very tasty, sweet, baked good of some kind. Now, currently, some of these cakes are contained, but not all 237 of them are. So you're probably thinking, okay, you eat the cake and then you die. Well, actually, that's not the case. The cake itself is super tasty and does absolutely nothing to you other than, maybe a few unneeded calories. What makes this creature a serious danger to society though is what happens after you had the cake. 24 hours after the cake was consumed, a slightly different cake will appear right where the last one was eaten. This will happen again and again and again, and it will go on forever. Now, once again, you're probably thinking, this is the best thing ever. I'm gonna have a free cake up here in front of me for the rest of my life. This is awesome. And if you keep eating it, or somebody else does, then you're probably right, that's great. But let's go down the rabbit hole assuming that you don't eat it. If you don't eat it, then another cake will spawn next to it anyways. Then after that, both of those cakes will spawn cakes, and then after that, all of those cakes will spawn more cakes, and so on, and so on, and so on. If this is forgotten about, then I kid you not, cakes could literally take over the planet. Researchers estimate that an uncontrolled outbreak would render the world completely uninhabitable after about 80 days, and there would be no turning back at that point. That's why every single one of these original cakes have got to be taken to a controlled facility and literally eaten once a day. Granted, if I was going to die, then death by cake world, probably not the worst way to go. Number 1 on this list is SCP-736. SCP-736 is simply impossible to catch with our current levels of technology. Therefore, it is extremely critical that while we are finding out a way to catch this thing, we at least develop a friendly relationship with it. SCP-736 is actually a moon, or at least an anomaly that is currently affecting the Saturnian moon of Iapetus. This Saturnian moon currently has an orbital period of 79 days around Saturn. The anomaly that we have witnessed changes that though. In fact, scientists have watched as every now and then this moon will completely alter its orbit. This orbit will eventually go back to normal, but only after this moon has moved and manipulated itself in ways that don't make any sense with our current understanding of physics. Right now, people believe that the moon is actually being controlled by an unknown intelligent entity. Whether this is the moon itself or some other third-party creature acting upon it, we have no idea. The reason that we believe this is that because back in 2007, when a probe was passing by this moon, it was contacted by a radio signal. This couldn't be deciphered by humans, however, it has led us to believe that a life force that is technologically advanced is living out on this moon, or something with the capability of utilizing radio waves is out there. We've attempted to contact this particular entity on the moon many times, but with no success. The scary part about this, and why we have to do something, is that this is a big object, guys. It is just under half the size of our moon and can apparently bend the laws of physics and go where it pleases. If it was potentially to crash into Saturn, then the effects it would have on our solar system, they'd be astronomical. Or even worse, if it were to crash into Earth, then the entire planet would collapse and the human race would cease to exist. All of this means that SCP-736 has to be contained or caught at some point for the safety of the planet.
Starting off in our number 5 spot, we have SCP-342. The SCP-342 creature normally takes the form of a mass transit ticket for the closest form of mass transportation to its current location. Currently, this demonic creature takes the form of a train ticket departing from an unknown station. When held by a person for any length of time, it will eventually change form into a transit ticket for a form of transportation its holder desires to use. This transformation always takes place when not being directly or indirectly observed, and there are no recordings of SCP-342 changing form. SCP-342 can inhabit any form of transportation ticket without being detected. If SCP-342 is validated by stamp, has its ticket stub torn off, or is disposed of in any way, it will reform into an unused ticket after a short period of time. Anyone who uses SCP-342 to board a vehicle is unable to exit their mode of transportation by any means. Once the vehicle ends its route or stops moving, the user will disappear from this reality. Users report an overpowering feeling of dread prior to boarding, and the feeling increases during the course of the travel, and shortly before their disappearance, they go into a panic-induced terror. There are many terrifying things the holder of this demon can experience, like seeing increased darkness in the sky outside of the vehicle, hallucinations, or a fear of other drivers, conductors, or other transit staff. As well as feeling threatened by other people around them, occurrences completely preventing the rider from getting off of the vehicle at any time, and seeing passengers simply appear suddenly then quickly vanish from their seats. All of these experiences are said to be like having paranoid schizophrenia. The terrifying experiences are usually only felt by the user, but sometimes bystanders and workers of the transit vehicle can experience feelings of uneasiness and will be compelled to exit the vehicle early, seeking other means of transportation. In our number 4 spot today, we have SCP-087. SCP-087, or otherwise known as the stairwell, is, you guessed it, a stairwell, and when you look down, it's pitch black with an unknown ghost-like figure at the bottom. This photo of the ghost figure has only been captured once, and we still don't know if SCP-087 is one entity or a group. The stairs descend on a 38-degree angle for 13 steps before reaching a semicircular platform. The design of this staircase limits subjects to a visual range of approximately 1.5 flights. A light source is required for any subjects exploring this creature, as there are no lighting fixtures or windows present. Due to the darkness and design, the subject needs an extremely bright source of light to be able to see the bottom. It's been seen that lighting sources brighter than 75 watts have been shown ineffective because SCP-087 seems to be able to absorb excess light. Subjects who have explored this creature have gotten an audio recording of what seems to be a distressed vocalization from what is presumed to be a child, but its age is unknown. The source of the distress calls is estimated to be located around 200 meters below the initial platform. However, any attempts to descend the staircase have failed to bring subjects closer to the source. The depth is believed to be far beyond the possible structure of both the building and geological surroundings. At this point, it is unknown if SCP-087 has an endpoint. Many people who have tried to learn more about this creature have suddenly gone missing during their exploration. It is believed that whatever or whoever is beyond the platform has extreme powers and can quickly grab the subject they desire with no one even noticing. Many believe that either below the platform or at the bottom of the stairs is the gateway to hell, or even SCP hell, where there are hundreds or thousands of SCP creatures that reside there. The mystery of these disappearances and the fact that we don't know much about this SCP-087 makes it even more terrifying. We don't know what it's truly capable of, or if they work alone, or if it's a group of creatures preying on humans. In our number 3 spot today, we have SCP-088. SCP-088. SCP-088 is a humanoid with reptile-like features which appears to be in a mummified form, but it's merely in a state of hibernation from which it may recover if it is exposed to a more hospitable environment than its current containment. Research has indicated that SCP-088 is approximately 6,000 years old and is capable of producing a variety of hazardous biological compounds from its mouth and hands. Some of these substances could be of great strategic value if replicated, but until a means to extract them without awakening SCP-088 is found, research is on hold. This demonic creature is currently sealed in its airtight case 24/7. The case is constructed of transparent acrylic plastic to resist the corrosive properties this creature possesses. This monster has been contained for more than 70 years and has only risen from its hibernation state twice. Each time personnel was exposed to the awoken demon, they experienced a painful mutation, after which they shared the physical characteristics of SCP-088. This creature also has demonstrated the ability to produce potent neurotoxins in liquid and gas form to combat containment personnel. SCP-088 was first recovered around the 1930s from a subterranean complex below Los Angeles, California. The site was originally discovered by a man known as GWS using a device he called a radio X-ray. After mapping a series of tunnels and gold deposits below the city, G declared that he found the lost city of lizard people as described in the legends of Arizona's Hopi tribe. The SCP-088 was recovered with the mummified remains of 23 other beings sharing a similar morphology. However, none of these beings found with this creature were alive, and examination suggests that they may have been originally human or possibly even half lizard, half man. Due to this creature being so dangerous to humans, it's been very hard for people to be able to research it or its origins, so many findings relating to the SCP-088 can't completely be confirmed and may never be due to the damage it can cause to humans. In our number 2 spot today we have SCP-173. Moving on to our next creature, we have SCP-173, the Sculpture. At a first glance at this creature, it may appear harmless or just a little creepy, but as it is a roughly humanoid concrete structure with stubby arms and legs with green and red facial features made from Crayon brand spray paint. But don't underestimate its abilities from its looks, as this scary creature is incredibly swift and is known to capture anyone as its victim. SCP-173 is considered a Euclid class SCP with Class 4 hazardous containment procedures, and the very first being captured by the SCP Foundation. It is the most well-known SCP of all time, rightfully so. The creature's origin is still unknown, but one thing is for sure, is that it is very hostile towards any life form. There have been reports of sounds of scraping stones within their container when no one is inside. To prevent SCP-173 from escaping, it must be locked in its container at all times. When personnel enters SCP-173's container, a minimum of 3 must be locked inside the container with the creature. To stop any mishaps, 2 people must maintain direct eye contact with him at all times, and they need to notify each other when they are going to blink, as it is only able to move when no one is looking. And for that reason, you may not want to take your eyes off of this one, or you may be in deep trouble. In our number 1 spot today we have SCP-993. SCP-993 is also known as Bobble the Clown. This is a humanoid creature that directly resembles the appearance of a clown. Bobble is known for his cruelty and sadistic behavior hidden behind the cheerful and colorful face of a clown. It's the scariest thing in the world. Arguably one of the scariest SCP for the fact that his main objective is brainwashing children through a television show. Bobble performs illegal and immoral acts and takes joy from watching his victims suffer. Okay, creepy clown, don't invite him to your birthday party. Additionally, he takes delight in twisting and manipulating people through his television show. Bobble the Clown was first discovered by the Foundation after they found its show, where in every episode, Bobble would teach a new lesson to its viewers to do illegal acts and cause violence, while giving explicit step-by-step instructions on how to commit these crimes. These actions became ingrained into subjects' minds, making them obsessed to carry out the actions themselves. Additionally, repeated exposure to SCP-993's show will cause severe mental illness issues. Protocol for any SCP-993 broadcast is to be intercepted and blocked from public viewing, though episodes are regularly still getting broadcast from an unknown source. All broadcasts are to be recorded and stored for future viewing, while any subjects used to view SCP-993 must be given a Class A amnesiac after they have described the episode. With its short temper, Bobble the Clown can quickly lose his happy and cheerful mask and become incredibly sadistic, using his supernatural abilities to stalk and spy on enemies to find their weaknesses, making SCP-993 one of the scariest SCPs out there.
In at number 5, we have SCP-096, the Shy Guy. 096 is also known as the Shy Guy, but do not let his name fool you. His appearance alone can terrify even the toughest person. They are one of the most horrific SCP creatures of all. They are an emaciated, bone-white, hairless humanoid with long dangly arms and legs. This creature tends to be docile, but it has one trigger that makes them highly dangerous: whenever someone looks directly at their face. Their face has blank eyes and a mouth that can stretch up to 5 times the normal size of a regular human. No matter how close you are to this creature, if you look at its face, even from a far distance or just for a second, it will go berserk. If this happens, it will start to flail, cry and babble before chasing down the offender and violently attacking them. If 096 gets provoked and someone looks at their face, it will stop at nothing to take down their prey. There isn't an obstacle it cannot get past. It can smash through steel doors and walls, running endlessly across huge distances, and even able to swim to the very bottom of the ocean to pluck said offender and destroy them. The only ability it does not have is it isn't able to fly, but it uses its extremely long arms to run, similar to a gorilla that uses their arms along with their legs to walk, and they launch off the ground to gain air and distance for a quicker capture of their prey. If this destructive creature is able to get captured, they must have a bag put on their head to make everyone that is around them safe. But accidents happen, and they have happened. 096 is one of the most well-known, iconic and recognizable SCPs of all time. In at number 4, we have SCP-939 with many voices. 939 is known as With Many Voices, and they are a species of bright red amphibian predators, each one as big as an adult man, and they weigh over 400 pounds. They don't appear to have many vital organs, lacking a nervous system, heart or digestive tract, and their elongated heads have no eyes and a large set of glowing dagger-like red teeth. They are terrifying to look at, but also can cause mass destruction. Despite being literally brainless, they are smart due to the way they hunt their prey. They have the ability to imitate the voices of prior victims, usually repeating urgent phrases to lure a good Samaritan to come to their aid and then attack them with their deadly bite. They also exhale an amnesia-inducing chemical, so if anybody is lucky enough to escape being killed and eaten, there is a good chance they won't remember what just happened, and could possibly get fooled by the creature's tricks again. If you ever hear mysterious calls for help, make sure it's not 939, or you will be devoured by this giant red amphibian. They also like to travel in packs, which is even more terrifying, and once they lay eyes on their prey, 939s are persistent and will continue to pursue said prey until they capture them. This monster is believed by many SCP fans to be a version of the devil due to tricking humans into thinking they're innocent, taking advantage of their vulnerability, and ultimately leading to that person's demise. Using their massive mouth and sharp teeth to instantly kill their prey, 939 loves to prey on humans due to the fact that they can trick them so easily, and they can take advantage of people's kindness to lure them in. In at number 3, we have SCP-106, the Old Man. 106, or otherwise known as the Old Man, is a terrifying looking elderly humanoid. Do not let his older appearance fool you, he is deadly. This creature has the general appearance of a human but looks like a rotting or decaying corpse. It is not too agile and can remain motionless for days at a time, waiting for his prey to come to him. This creature is capable of scaling any vertical surface and can remain suspended upside down indefinitely. When 106 will attempt to incapacitate their prey by damaging damaging major organs, muscle groups, or tendons, they then pull prey into its pocket dimension. They prefer human prey from 10 to 25 years old, but if they haven't had prey for a while, they will take anyone or any living thing. This creature is very smart and has many abilities, making it hard to capture. They are able to cause corrosion effect in all solid matter it touches, engaging a physical breakdown in materials several seconds after contact. This is observed as rusting, rotting, and cracking of materials, and the creation of a black mucus-like substance similar to the material that coats 106. It is also capable of passing through solid matter, leaving behind a large patch of its corrosive mucus. This demonic monster remains in a maximum secure area. No physical interaction with 106 is allowed at any time. All staff must stay away, and they need to always stay at least 6 meters away from the cell, except in the event of a security breach. He resides in a sealed container comprised of a lead-lined steel, and it is sealed within 40 layers of identical material. The cell is also suspended in the air so that this creature can never be able to escape. Any object or material lost to SCP-106 is deemed missing, and no recovery attempts are to be made under any circumstances. If this creature escapes, it could be detrimental. In at number 2 we have SCP-049, the Plague Doctor. 049, otherwise known as the Plague Doctor, is popular among SCP fans. At first glance, it's not the most terrifying creature out there. It's dressed like a man who is dressed in a black hooded robe and a silvery ceramic mask with long bird-like nose. It has since been found out that this attire is an extension of his body, being fused permanently and organically to his flesh. It is a humanoid entity around 6 feet tall and resembles the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. This creature's intent is ridding the world of the disease, which has yet to be elaborated on, so no one really knows what his true motive is. He selectively chooses which patients he wants to operate on, and his mysteriousness makes him even more terrifying. His touch is fatal, and when he has a cadaver to work on, he cuts them open with no medicine and makes them watch while he performs on them with a strange set of medical tools and serums. Once the operation is complete to the Plague Doctor's standards, the patients are never the same again, and they lack any higher brain power function, so they tend to roam around in a zombie-like state. 049 goes from patient to patient because that is what they enjoy and what motivates them, so they try and find the right match quickly. If they go too long without finding a victim, they grow impatient and go completely nuts, ultimately tearing their targets apart in anger. This demonic creature is smart enough to speak but usually chooses not to. He is silent but deadly. When he does choose to speak, he rarely deviates from the subject of curing the pestilence. Under no circumstance should you ever come in contact with this creature due to his unpredictability and sudden burst of rage. You never know what it will be like, and it could be deadly for you. The Plague Doctor is the stuff of nightmares and horror movies, and you should avoid it at all costs. And finally, in at number 1 we have SCP-682, the Hard to Destroy Reptile. One of the scariest and most well-known SCP creatures is the Hard to Destroy Reptile. It is a massive cold-blooded quadruped with more intelligence than a human. Despite being highly intelligent, he is also extremely dangerous and hateful towards pretty much every living thing. This demonic creature enjoys showing humans and other life forms his distaste for them by ripping them to pieces. It also has massive strength, speed, reflexes, and can regenerate flesh at a rapid pace, and is able to adapt to hostile environments in the blink of an eye. Other abilities this creature possesses is it can bring itself back from the dead. Many have attempted with everything from bullets to acid and fire to even nuclear bombs, but nothing can destroy this beast. Not even other SCP creatures are able to destroy this monster. It can also evolve and change its body when needed. It can consume organic or inorganic materials to provide for the necessary mass, and it has been known to grow additional organs. This creature was discovered by the Foundation after it killed a few farmers on the grounds of being disgusted. If you try and destroy him or get your revenge on this creature, good luck, because it is damn near impossible, hence its nickname, the Hard to Destroy Reptile. It could appear as though you did destroy it, but that is exactly what they want you to think. They will appear dead at first, but then quickly adapt and find a counter to said opponent, returning to life with even more abilities than before. One example was that the beast was launched into the sun. It returned a few days later as a winged fire creature, which caused massive devastation when it landed back on Earth. The creature is one of the most dangerous creatures in possession by the Foundation for all its abilities and its hatred for all life.
Coming in at number 5, we've got SCP-681. Gas leaks are no joke, but at least they aren't sentient. Could you imagine gas coming to find you even when you make it to well-ventilated safety? The horror, the terror, the breathlessness. It's all too much to handle. SCP-681 capitalizes on that fear and follows folks around. As of right now, it's contained in a series of grounded pressure tanks and watched over carefully, but if anything were to happen to these containers, stuff could go sideways. It was discovered in a warehouse after all sorts of unexplained asphyxiation deaths occurred. The Foundation arrived and figured out that the gas was actually quite sentient, and would find its way into the airways and sinus cavities of anything with brain waves that it could sense. So wherever this gas is, it wants to suffocate people. And the thing about helium gas is that it doesn't have a smell, and people don't often realize that they're not getting any oxygen if they're surrounded by it. Historically, it's been deadly because it's hard to detect but easy to breathe. So with the addition of the whole brainwave seeking bit, this gas can really mess people up. There are dozens of canisters of this stuff, and these kinds of things often fail, so you'd better watch out. Apparently the Foundation has done a poor job of keeping track of the canisters too. Unfortunate. Currently, they have a few measures to ensure that it doesn't escape again. Folks working around it are given oxygen masks to put on at the first sign of trouble, and there are plenty of siphoning tools ready to use at a moment's notice. If all else fails, they put helium where it's best recognized, in latex balloons. However, if it's in one of the balloons, it will still attempt to float towards and asphyxiate nearby sentient creatures. It's a balloon though, so not much harm is done. Get this, if you put the helium in a balloon animal, it will start to take on aggressive traits of whatever creature it resembles. Damn, an angry balloon dog, or maybe just a snake. Just make sure not to pop them, because that's when things can get really dangerous. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-3671. What did you have for breakfast this morning? I went with coffee and a pumpkin pastry, but most folks would opt for something different. Bacon and eggs is a classic, but it's become harder to get done with modern work expectations. Of course, you can get all that bacon and eggy goodness in a breakfast sando, which honestly might improve on the classic. There's fruit cups, there's yogurt, but there's also cereal. Essentially a vehicle for marketing colorful characters with a bit of nutrition on the inside of the box. Just be careful while pouring yourself a bowl of crunchy goodness. Your cereal box might have been replaced with SCP-3671. This SCP is a sapient box of off-brand cereal that seems to manifest a new package of contents each morning. All part of a balanced breakfast, of course. When the Foundation started to experiment upon this box, they got all sorts of examples of funky cereals. Strawberry squares, bacon-flavored corn pops, granola pieces covered in chocolate. It all sounds pretty good, to be honest. But then the attending researcher accidentally ripped the box. 3671 was not happy about this. The label changed to say something simply awful, and the contents the next morning were less than edible. The cereal was replaced with razor blades, then thumbtacks, then bullets of various calibers. The box's label changed over time too, detailing violent acts and cereal-based puns. Yikes. One day, it seemed to return to normal and produce some average-looking cornflakes. Wrong. They contained lethal amounts of cyanide. All in all, this is a very dangerous box of cereal, one on a quest for revenge and out to destroy the humans who ripped its box. The latest discoveries have been plastic explosives, more threats, and human teeth. Somehow these teeth match the composition and genetic material of the researcher who ripped the box. This is one morbid breakfast item. So keep an eye out for any changes in your morning routine. It's hard to start the day right when your bowl is full of deadly poison. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-3181. Cognitohazards are always a blast, am I right? Changing the way our brains work and all. Some are extremely dangerous and could tear the fragile fabric of our society if given too much leeway. Others just kind of make weird stuff happen. You let me know which one of those categories applies to 3181. It's a KFC in Oklahoma that challenges our perception of the word boneless. Here's a direct example from the wiki. Within the confines of SCP-3181, the concept of boneless is distinct from the lack of bones. Something can be boneless despite possessing bones, and the lack of bones is irrelevant to whether or not something is boneless. Furthermore, any object, event, location, information, etc. can be sensibly described as boneless or not boneless. Interesting to say the least. I'm going to continue on reading right from the wiki for the sake of clarity and coherence because it's hard to discuss otherwise. The following generalizations have been made about bonelessness. Any two things that are mostly identical will either be both boneless or both be non-boneless. The probability of two things sharing the same boneless status decreases as differences accrue between them. All non-boneless things except for food products have similar boneless counterpart, which can be conceptualized utilized and often created. The reverse is not true, as several boneless things are dissimilar from all known non-boneless things. A subject's ability to render something boneless is proportional to their will to accomplish a task, and only weakly proportional to their skill at the acts necessary to do so. Somewhere between 10 and 40% of all things are boneless, depending on how things are quantified. Boneless things are considerably more desirable than comparable non-boneless things. Canines are unique in preferring non-boneless things. Ordained priests of any Christian denomination are always boneless. Other humans are almost never boneless. Things that appear angry, insufficiently clothed, or internet connected are more likely to be boneless. Temperature is irrelevant to bonelessness unless it results in an obvious qualitative change. Food products are never boneless. Puzzle that one out. It's essentially a meme come to life, and one that makes communication concerning whether or not something is boneless more difficult than usual. Try not to think about it too hard, lest the whole world fall victim to the boneless masses. And don't even get me started on the ollie variation. Only true skaters are gonna get that one. Coming in number 2, we've got SCP-6102. How to approach this one? It's quite upsetting when you think about it, but the way that this document is presented makes it difficult to comprehend outright. It appears to be a wiki entry from some point in the future, a world where there are literally millions of SCPs, and the Foundation has employed auto-archivists to sift through abandoned places in search of anomalies. See if you can puzzle out what they're trying to tell you. They found an entity that was described as something with 4 outer limbs covered in a thin layer of flesh. These auto-archivists apply the 4 pillars of reason to the entities, which are capability, permanence, intelligence, and deification. In terms of capability, this thing was unable to be properly tested as it lacked any sort of compatible port for data transfer. When testing permanence, they attempted to lacerate the fleshy layer, resulting in a so-called blaring sound. Then, testing intelligence, the auto-archivists applied a plethora of tests meant to quantify all sorts of potential types of knowledge. They came away finding that it lacks purpose. Deification couldn't be properly tested, although they did find a carbon-based object in the entity's oral cavity. Take a look at this. It's an old soother. Wait. Is this thing a baby? And finally at number 1 we've got SCP-3035. Roaches are raunchy enough to start with, but when you have a batch like this, may something have mercy on your soul. The Foundation discovered a particular breed of roaches that were very good at superficial mimicry. They will see what another being is doing and do their best to replicate that action. Another detail worth noting is that these bugs are faster at picking up behaviors from each other. So if one looks at another mimicking something else, they'll start a bit of a feedback loop scenario. The researcher who decided to perform experiments on the bugs soon noticed that they were mimicking him. As he typed at his computer, they would stand in front of the glass of their enclosure and make tapping sounds. As he walked around and sat down in chairs, so too would they strut on 2 legs and seek out objects to perch upon. Eventually he had doll furniture installed in their enclosure to allow them to more accurately mimic his actions. This is when they started growing. They got bigger by degrees at first, but soon they were growing exponentially. And after he performed an autopsy on one of the cockroaches, they did the same to one of their own. When the bugs grew 150% larger overnight, the researcher decided to euthanize them all. But his next email was nothing but a bunch of random text, as if someone had been banging on his keyboard. Uh-oh.
Kicking off at number 5, SCP-2700. And really, this should be at the top of our list in terms of calamity, but we recently covered it in our cursed SCP items list, so no, get to the back of the line, SCP-2700. As we said in our other list, stock for stock, this item is potentially the most devastatingly powerful item in the entirety of the SCP Foundation's arsenal. As the record states, SCP-2700 is a complex mechanical device believed to be a vessel of sophisticated directed energy. The device itself consists of 3 components: the interface, the accelerator, and the core, and it was developed by the legendary Serbian physicist and renowned inventor Nikola Tesla. Yes, exactly, the Nikola Tesla. On the surface, the Foundation portrays this ingenious object as merely a miraculous relic left over from the legendary inventor's legacy. But as is the same with many things in the SCP Foundation, all is not as it may seem. To boil it down, SCP-2700 is a weapon of such immensely insane power that a single firing wouldn't just destroy all life on planet Earth, it would destroy all life in the universe. Well, I say destroy in the most tentative term because a better word would be reset. SCP-2700 behaves inversely regards to entropy, and if you fire this weapon, it would cause a chain reaction that essentially causes a reverse Big Bang. Maybe the universe would completely reset itself, maybe it wouldn't. I don't really want to find out. Do you? Coming in at number 4, SCP-990. And I love this skip because SCP-990 reminds me of both the Observer from Fringe and the conspiracy suits from the X-Files, except this guy is a little more forthcoming with his mysterious intentions. SCP-990 is one of the few items in their canon that the Foundation isn't entirely sure whether he's trying to help humanity or destroys all entirely. Currently, there is no known containment procedure for SCP-990 for one simple reason: he only appears in dreams. Essentially, he's a much more stylish Freddy Krueger. Sorry Freddy, just with less claws and even less plastic reality. As the record states, SCP-990 generally appears as a human male dressed in a Cold War era business suit who appears to Foundation personnel through the power of dreams. So far, no members of the Foundation have encountered this guy in the real world, and if he corresponds to an actual physical human being, then he's yet to be found. Essentially, 990 appears with the intention to warn people of disastrous events, and anything that he warns of inevitably comes true. Now, the Foundation aren't sure whether he's actually causing these events or just being a good dream Samaritan, but his most startling revelation is the end of the world, and his warning is focused on a yet to be revealed SCP. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. Next up at number 3, SCP-001, When Day Breaks. Now, this is an interesting one because if you know anything about the SCP Foundation, you'll know that their first entry in their archives, SCP-001, is ambiguous in its origin and is made up of over 20 different entries, all of which may or not be the real SCP-001. Sound a bit confusing? Well, essentially, SCP-001 is brimming with potential red herrings to keep the Foundation's motivations and goals a secret. One of these is SCP-001 SD Locke's Proposal, also known as When Day Breaks, and if it is a genuine entry, then we're all kind of screwed. In the worst possible way. As the record states, When Day Breaks is an Apollyon class object that due to its nature cannot be contained. It is the designation given to our sun after an undisclosed event resulted in over 6.8 billion casualties with the first 24 hours. 001 is the exposure to ultraviolet rays that upon contact liquefy living organisms, with the effect spreading until the entire organism is converted, visually being similar to melting wax. Essentially, if you step out into the sunlight during the events of 001, you turn into a gelatinous mass, and inevitably when you make contact with another biological organism, you combine and blend at molecular level. Picture our world right now, but everything is made out of wax. I mean, everything. Then turn the heat up really high, and then everything wants to kill you. That's what SCP-001 will look like, and it's not pretty. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-2935. And conceptually, this is one of my favourite SCPs in the whole Foundation, although it's also perhaps the most bleak, so go figure. As the record states, SCP-2935 is a space-time anomaly that exists within a limestone cave beneath a cemetery near Joppa, Indiana. The anomaly in question is a nearly exact replicate reality of modern Earth in the year 2016, with one quite significant difference. All life, both biological and non-biological, as well as any sentient entities, machines, computers, and other lifelike phenomena, ended on April 20th, 2016. All life forms within 2935 suddenly and without warning expired sometime between the hours of 3 AM and 4 AM Eastern Time, the reason for which is currently uncertain. When I say all life, I mean all life. Even the alternate reality version of SCP-682, as in the hard to destroy reptile who can withstand any destructive effect, even he died. As it turns out though, there is a little bit more to this story, and it appears that the events of SCP-2935 happened after an SCP agent known as Keller entered this Earth from an alternative reality, but unbeknownst to him was himself an anomalous entity that when exposed to another version of reality brings about the end of all life. As SCP-2935 explains, Keller was caught in a time loop, and every other version of himself was destined to enter the same space-time anomaly at some point. To stop this, he nuked himself as well as the mobile task force accompanying him to bring an end to the time loop and stop the same effects spreading to our version of reality. What a hero. And thankfully, the Foundation filled the hole with cement and just tried to forget about the whole thing. And finally, at our number 1 spot, SCP-610. And of course, it has to be the classic scenario, a deadly pathogenic infection that could potentially spread across the planet and bring an end to all life as we know it. Although that would be the kind scenario because it doesn't exactly bring an end to all life, it seeks to consume it and turn it into a fleshy, amorphous mass of skin and limbs and eyes. There's a reason why this entry is nicknamed the flesh that hates, and you're about to find out exactly why. As the record states, on first look, 610 appears to be a contagious skin disease with symptoms including a rash, itching, and increased skin sensitivity. Within 3 hours of exposure, the disease will cause blemishes resembling heavy scar tissue that within 5 hours completely consumes the victim. The victim then appears to expire but will restart after several minutes, where the scar tissue on the victims then begin to move on its own accord and grow at a rapid rate. Victims have been observed growing extra limbs, elongating their heads, and splitting apart parts of their bodies where additional branches of flesh will grow. The thing is though, once infected, 610 seeks to aggressively spread itself over the nearest surfaced area, searching for other biological organisms that it can add to its mass. 610's only motivation is to consume the planet into one writhing, limb-filled mass of flesh. 7 billion people's worth. That's like an ocean's worth of flesh. Kicking off at number 5, SCP-2317. And I'm sure you'll all appreciate this fact, but this video is going to have a lot of jumbled numbers throughout because you know that's how catalog systems work, right? Well, let me introduce you to SCP-2317, which is the perfect way to demonstrate the levels of secrecy that the SCP Foundation operates. So much so that depending on what level of security clearance you have, the more you'll know about 2317, and the more you'll realize how absolutely screwed we'd all be if it ever got out. Essentially, SCP-2317 is a locked wooden door that leads to an alternate reality. Inside that reality is a demonic, anomalous entity that swallows planets whole, yet is supposedly locked away by 7 bones of another of its own species, binding it in a ritual that by all accounts will prevent the end of all existence. The thing is though, 6 of those bones are broken, and now there's only 1 of those bones preventing it from escaping. The Foundation goes to great lengths to fabricate a ritual which involves human sacrifice, which it tells its lower ranking staff will prevent said end of the world. Spoilers though, it doesn't, and all it does is serve as a way to mentally distract everyone from the inevitable end of all life. Whew, heavy stuff. Coming in at number 4, SCP-2399. Now, it's important to note that there's a slim chance that SCP-2399 won't be a world-ending catastrophe after all, and its intentions are to simply land on Earth and usher in a new age of technological prosperity. But really guys, would we ever want to take that risk? Because I wouldn't. In short, SCP-2399 is a massive alien continent-sized complex mechanical structure that was on course for Earth before it was caught in the gravity of Jupiter's moon of Io, causing it to become stranded on the gas giant, automatically activating its self-defense protocols, resulting in what is now known by astronomers as the Great Red Spot. Now, SCP-2399 constantly dispenses fleets of small drones that slowly repair it, and as far as the latest update goes, it's nearly ready for completion. The thing is, it's encased in an indestructible force field that the Foundation currently has no way of even denting or even scanning to figure out what the hell is going on underneath there. Their latest plan was known as Protocol Legionnaire, which essentially was firing a volley of nuclear warheads enough to wipe out civilization 1,000 times over. And guess what? Not even a dent. Whatever's under there has got the Foundation spooked and in all likelihood will result in the end of the world as we know it. Hey, that's a song, right? Next up at number 3, SCP-3003. If any of you have a fear of the uncanny, then this one's for you, because if the thought of being parasitically overthrown by a sentient alien bug sends shivers down your spine, then let me introduce you to SCP-3003, otherwise known as the end of history. Essentially, 3003 is an Earth-sized planet 208 light years away from our Earth, but aside from distance, is near identical to our own. However, it possesses a population of over 30 billion and is exponentially more technologically advanced than our civilization, down to one small but significant difference. SCP-3003 is controlled by a beetle-like organism that parasitizes human life and wants to bring Earth under its influence. Because of its ability to enslave human life under its hive mind, the planet of SCP-3003 has become highly advanced and is nearly at the point of becoming an interstellar civilization, where it will arrive on Earth and and infect us all with its mind-controlling amoeba-like organisms. The thing is though guys, the 30 billion humanoids already under its control are possibly the happiest people in the universe. They're healthy, they're happy, they don't partake in violent behaviour and abstain from military conflict. They have a resistance to pain and diseases and are genetically engineered to be the best spacefaring species that they can be. But they also lack all semblance of free will and self-determination, so get the hell away from my brain, you damn alien bug. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-3007. Whew! This one's a doozy. And SCP-3007 is what is known in the Foundation as an info hazard, a key to class info hazard, which in other words means it's really bad. An info hazard by nature wants to be spread via knowledge and awareness, and as we all know, you can't kill an idea. Essentially, 3007 is a simultaneous dream that people have, which exhibits them walking through a strange world, not unlike our own. If they're injured in that world, they're injured in real life. If they die, they die. And there's an entity imprisoned within it that wants nothing more than to bleed out into our world to do the same. It's known as the Red. Now there's a lot to this skip and the canon surrounding it is very intricate, but essentially the Red is an anomalous entity that attached itself to a highly advanced alien civilization that had reached space exploration and stumbled upon it. Over hundreds of years it used this unfortunate civilization as its plaything, twisting and contorting them into monstrosities and warping their world for its own sadistic pleasure. And guess what? It wants to do exactly the same to our world and is slowly luring people to its awareness through the power of dreams. Currently, the only way to contain this spread is to terminate all people who become aware of the info hazard, and as far as plans concerned, there is none. Oops. And finally, at our number 1 spot, SCP-001 SDL. Alright, as far as fiction goes, SCP-001 When Day Breaks is one of the most masterful and horrifying stories told throughout the entire Foundation, and it's a testament to exactly what the SCP multiverse can produce. Now, there's no clear definition on what SCP-001 is, and instead there are over 30 different proposals which keep the whole thing ambiguous. One of those proposals is SDL, or When Day Breaks, and it gives a whole new meaning to Don't Go Into the Light. Essentially, SDL is an extinction level event where the sun has turned everyone on Earth into an amorphous goo, which still retains its sentience and essentially reduces Earth's population to malevolent flesh zombies. What is left is a bleak, inhospitable world for its survivors, people on the edge of existence, roaming the wasteland, trying to stay in the shadows and avoid the roaming hordes of melted flesh zombies. What makes it worse though is that the amorphous goo has a tendency to combine into each other, meaning that a large bulk of the 7 billion people on the planet have become burbling, breathing masses of sentient, fleshy goo, and they want you to join them to step out into the light and be melted by the sun. Whew. I'd take regular zombies any day. Kicking off at number 5, SCP-169. And for this particular entry, we're going to be gently dipping our toe into the very specific and terrifying category that is anomalous entities that could potentially spell the end of the world. Let me introduce you to SCP-169, and you can happily rest assured that if it ever did set into play its apocalyptic chain of events and destroy the planet, there'd be literally nothing you could do to save yourself, given the fact that, technically speaking, SCP-169 kind of is the planet. Yeah, let me explain. 169 is the serpentine leviathan of nautical legend, the literal living definition of the serpent that wraps itself around the earth, Jormungandr of Norse legend, the leviathan of the Hebrew Bible, Tiamat of Mesopotamia. In the canon of the SCP Foundation, 169 is the living embodiment of all of them, and then some. As the record states, because of its size, 169 cannot and almost certainly will never be contained, given the fact that no structure on Earth is large enough or strong enough to contain it. The location of SCP-169 isn't precisely known, but satellite imagery has vaguely designated it as residing mainly in the southern Atlantic Ocean, possibly stretching to the tip of South America. The Foundation estimates that its body length is anywhere between 2,000 and 8,000 kilometers, and the creature itself is thought to have existed since the Precambrian era. I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but on its size alone, SCP-169 could simply cause a global tidal wave just by kicking out in its sleep. I mean, that's if snakes could kick, but you get the idea, right? The Leviathan is based on a legend as old as civilization itself, so it goes without saying that its prime directive is to bring an end to all life on Earth. Thankfully, it seems that the creature is dormant for now. Coming in at number 4, SCP-008. And whilst our previous entry is mythologically light-hearted enough, this particular entry in the Foundation's archives is based upon perhaps one of the most terrifying biological entities known to humanity, an infectious prion disease. Imagine every pandemic or contagion horror movie you've ever seen. Hell, roll in all of the Living Dead apocalypse films too, and they rarely come close to the startling efficiency of this particular zombie plague. In many ways, SCP-008 is the stereotypical breakdown of the virus that would beckon forth the zombie apocalypse. It's even got the whole by removing the head or destroying the brain trope too. But the scariest part of this entry is the suggestion of how our governments will react to having access to it. And that's a whole new level of fear, right? Biological zombie warfare. As the record states, 008 is a complex prion disease with 100% infectiousness, 100% lethality, transmission of which occurs through exposed mucous membranes and all bodily fluids. It's in the efficiency of 008 where the terror truly lies though, because, I mean, come on, even in the bleakest of pandemic horrors, there's some kind of cure or immunity. Nope, not in this case, because this is the SCP Foundation and there is no hope. As we also mentioned, this entry goes one further with the anxiety-ridden implication and states that although all known samples of SCP-008 have otherwise been securely contained with the utmost urgency for security, at some point in 1959 the Russian government took control of one of the discovered samples after working collaboratively with the SCP Foundation, the location of which is now otherwise unknown. Yeah, you know what I'm getting at, right? A zombie apocalypse arms race. That's a terrifying thought. Next up at number 3, SCP-3999. And just as a side note, this entry in particular is awesome and also utterly terrifying, and you'll be pleased to know that it's also vaguely reminiscent of one of my favourite short stories of all time, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, from the mind of the fantastic science fiction writer Harlan Ellison. And maybe that will give you a vague idea of the existential terror that lurks deep within 3999, because unlike the omnipotent dictatorship of the Allied master computer, this anomalous entity does things a little differently. You see, within the canon of the SCP Foundation, certain classifications of beings stir more fear than others, and perhaps the most terrifying are the ones that can manipulate the mind itself, and thus the nature of all reality. There are cognitohazards and memetic viruses alike, but 3999 is what is known as a reality bender, an otherwise corporeal entity of unknown origin that can manipulate and potentially destroy reality itself. Thankfully for us, 3999 seems fit to only take out its anomalous, torturous desire on one individual in particular, a member of the Foundation staff by the name of researcher Talaran, who, much like the 5 victims of the Allied master computer in Ellison's story, is the perpetual mental slave of the 399 entity, caught in the eternal torment of both psychological and physical misery. Now, take my word for it, the terrifying reality-bending entity within this entry could very much bring about the end of the world with merely a snap of its fingers, but there's a very poignant ending to this Foundation piece that I'm relatively certain you Top 5 Scary Videos viewers will enjoy. Shout out to Lord Stonefish, the creator of this entry, because it's one of my personal favourite picks in the whole of the Foundation archives, and it's masterfully written. You know what, there'll be links down below. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-001, the Gate Guardian, otherwise known as Dr. Clef's proposal. And as you may know if you're familiar with the SCP Foundation on a whole, the first entry in the organisation's archive, 001, isn't exactly clear in its portrayal. In fact, 001 is made up of over 30 different possible proposals as to what the entry in particular actually is, as in it may entirely be possible to be none of them, one of them, or even all of them. The one that we're concerned with though is perhaps one of its most popular, the Gate Guardian, which outlines knowledge of a colossal being made from pure energy that wields a sword with the ability to annihilate anything that passes too close, destroying it at an atomic level. If that's not already terrifying enough, the entity also guards the entrance to the Abrahamic Garden of Eden, located by anomalous means somewhere between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and has been doing so for as long as the Foundation has been around, and in fact inspired the Foundation to be created. And that may give you a semblance of an idea as to where we're going with this particular entry, because when we apply the end of the world to the Gate Guardian, what we really mean is the rapture, the end of days, the classical biblical depiction of hellfire, damnation, and death. And if that's not already bad enough, the Gate Guardian has technically already ended the world after leaving his post, opening the gate and letting an unknown entity pour forth into our world, where the Foundation subsequently declared an XK class end of the world scenario and pretty much went into has well and truly hit the fan mode. However, as the record states in SCP-001, knowledge of this event was actually sent through anomalous means from the future, warning the Foundation of the dangers that the Gate Guardian is currently containing. Now, all of this obviously could be hodgepodge, as it's very clear that it will never be certain as to which 001 proposal is true. But if it's this one, yeah, there's probably no coming back from this one. And finally, coming in at our number one spot, SCP-4023. And as a horror fan, this one is awesome, if not utterly terrifying, and conceptually speaking, SCP-4023 is perhaps one of the most horrifyingly original entries that I've seen in a long time. However, as with many things in the SCP Foundation, it does take quite a while to wrap your head around its technical intricacies. But once you do, yeah, you'll be like me and have the prior knowledge that this entry in particular is going to end really badly. Let me explain, and really all you need to do is keep the number 23 firmly in your mind. As the record states, 4023 is an Apollyon class object that is seemingly made up of a collection of 23 anomalous objects, events and entities which are currently being investigated by the Foundation's researchers as to their true nature. Although they do already have an equally terrifying hypothesis, and it revolves around a figure referred to as SCP-4023-18, otherwise known as the Entity, an extra-dimensional malevolent force that is seeking to enter our dimension on the 2nd of March 2023. It is believed by the Foundation that this entity in question has been creating anomalies that relate to the number 23 in our world, as well as many other realities, in order to act as a nexus for its arrival into our plane of existence. Although only speculatively, its goal is to merge with the 13 current O5 council members, where it will enter a state of completion in which the entity will consist of 23 connected parts, the other 10 being comprised of itself and the 9 missing members of a previously extinct O6 council that were absorbed by the entity. Yeah, it's complicated, but that's the terrifying beauty of this particular entity. It's the fear of the unknown that drives its nightmarish narrative. We don't know what SCP-4023 will do, can do, or is already doing, but it does mean one thing. Whatever it is, it will more than likely herald the end of the world. But that's just another day for the SCP Foundation, isn't it?
And coming in at number 5, SCP-1750.
Autobots, roll out.
Reptilian Transformers? Sounds terrifying already. This animalistic ancient consciousness has the power to possess petroleum-based vehicles, anything from automobiles to propeller-powered aircraft. With an SCP class of Keter, this autonomous consciousness seems to have breached special containment procedures recently and is moving quite fast and quite furious. The Foundation is collaborating with overseas governments, automotive manufacturers, and environmental protection agencies to advance the development and understanding of this phenomenon. Mobile Task Force MU-13 is working with the Department of Analytics to investigate and neutralize 2 vehicles and petroleum-based machines that may be affected by SCP-1750 as we speak. Affected vehicles should be delivered to Foundation Disposal Site 93 for recycling and containment. I wonder if the Foundation has a back parking lot, just a bunch of haunted Supras. I don't know. SCP-1750 vehicles animated by the phenomenon display animal-like behaviors with similarities to serpents, crocodiles, and birds. Terrifying. Possibly a Jurassic consciousness. There does not seem to be any underlying pattern or cause to the phenomenon. Exorcisms specialized for reptilian ectomorphs have proven the most effective at neutralizing SCP-1750, which also end naturally once the vehicle runs out of a fuel source. Okay, that's a good sign. Just needs oil and blood to survive. It is hypothesized that 1750 is the result of dinosaur-based ectomorphs inhabiting the fuel in the vehicles from a fossil fuel energy source based in a prehistoric energy. This would similarly explain why SCP-1750 has not occurred in electric or hydraulic powered machines. There have been 5 examples of interest as of now, and the agency is actively pursuing the recovery of 2 vehicles. SCP-1750 is actively possessing an oil tanker currently submerged in the Atlantic Ocean off the Gulf Coast of Mexico near the floor of the ocean. The oil tanker has apparently been witnessed showing characteristics of shark-like or croc-like behavior, hunting whales and other large predators. Imagine just a giant megalodon submarine with teeth? Yeah, I'll leave that one up to the professionals. I'm also not really a strong swimmer. Okay, so Transformers, cool. Or Decepticons, more like. And coming in at number 4, SCP-58. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Well, let's hope not. This next one sounds like it could cause a heart attack just talking about it. And no, I'm not talking about your ex. I'm talking about SCP-58, or better known as the Heart of Darkness. Sounds like something you'd find in Zelda. This SCP has recently been contained and returned by authorities to the Foundation's premises. Thank God. This Keter-class anomaly is a large, inanimate bovine heart with various arthropod-like appendages and tentacles. I'm sorry, what does it have? It's highly hostile to all forms of life, and when it was discovered, had decimated its way through an entire town. Heartbreak City, huh? While also killing hundreds of individuals in its wake, it was eventually stopped after being pinned under masonry from the building that it had collapsed on top of it. Given the Keter-class designation due to the extreme difficulty containing it, with it orchestrating various attempts and even some successful containment breaches, the Heart of Darkness is a slippery one to handle. Large in its size with 4 legs, 4 tentacles of unknown length, and a stinger, the heart can move on its own, and pretty damn fast. The tentacles are covered in razor-sharp spines and can also be used as a whip at a distance of about 10.5 feet. At speeds of a minimum of 200 miles per hour, this SCP is highly resilient to trauma and extremely vicious, and will use every opportunity to escape. A bullet is almost as fast as this thing. No, you heard it right. In short bursts, it is capable of movement, both horizontal and vertical. It has the ability to accelerate to full speed in less than 2 seconds. It has been shown to use its tentacles for increased leverage and stability, as well as using them to pull itself to other surfaces at high speeds. SCP-58 possesses the ability to speak, although scientists are unable to figure out where the sounds are being made and transported from. Its voice is that of an elderly British male with a slight lisp and deep voice. SCP-58 talks constantly, regardless of conditions, even when it's attacking. 58's voice and pace of speech remain unchanged. Terrifying. Speeches made by 58 lack any concrete relations to events, persons, or exterior locations. I wonder if he sings. Hey, do you know Closer to the Heart by Rush? No? Just asking. Thankfully, this SCP has recently been contained and the Heart of Darkness is being held at an unmarked location. Whew. Coming in at number 3, we have SCP-306. This next case reminds me of Dr. Kurt Connor's lizard in Spider-Man. Maybe this is where Stan Lee got his inspiration from. At first, this SCP seems harmless, even cute, though appearing to resemble a frog or toad in nature. This phenomenon is actually a fungus. 306 can infect humans through inhalation of spores or by skin-to-skin contact. Sounds like another pandemic to me. Initial symptoms of infection can include coughing and sneezing and skin lesions. Okay, so far not so bad. Lesions caused by 306 display to become warts and reach full size after approximately 2 days. Lesions that fall from the body of infected subjects are light enough to be carried by wind and capable of spreading 306 spores for years to come. That makes it a little hard to contain, no? SCP-306 hosts have an appearance similar to amphibians, but correspond to no known species. SCP-306 was discovered in Louisiana in a swampy area when locals reported a colony of unknown amphibious humanoid creatures coupled with a string of unexplained disappearances. 306 appears to infect mainly humans, however has been shown to grow in and on nearly every biological matter. Autopsies of deceased 306 hosts have revealed that internal structures remain morphologically similar to human organs following amphibian metamorphosis. That sentence is probably the most horrible thing I've ever said out loud. Basically, this bacteria will turn you slowly into an amphibian while keeping you somewhat human-like, like a half-human, half-frog. Warm and cold-blooded at the same time. Hazmat teams are to remove and examine personnel for signs of infection. Infected personnel are to be quarantined, affected areas to be sterilized. Any items making physical contact with infected subjects or 306 residue are to be incinerated immediately. All water and sewer systems are to be sealed, and preventing SCP-306 from infecting any large body of water is an Alpha class priority. Makes you think if the planet was once ruled by dinosaurs or just a mutated case of 306 has gone wrong. You tell me. Number 2, SCP-679. This next one is a highly infectious one and very transmittable, and I felt that it deserved to be on this list of SCPs that have had a history of escaping due to its sporadic and contagious qualities. SCP-679 is a pathogen-spread fungal infection related to an unknown Aspergillus species, discovered in Florida firstly recently among the homeless population. This highly infectious organism attacks the eyes, optical nerves, sinus, and eventually the brain, leaving only black tentacle-like receptacles outside of the face and eyes. In early stages, stages, subjects complain of entopic phenomena and eye hallucinations. Hosts are subject to horrific visions. Irritated, itchy eyes resembling pink eye is reported. Subjects then report seeing tiny bright dots moving rapidly in their field of vision similar to floaters after staring at a wall or screen for too long. After about a week of exposure, the sclera turns black and the subject loses vision completely, rendering them blind. Small ulcerations then appear in the corners of the eyes after a day, and this causes the vitreous humor to begin leaking out, having the appearance of thick, black tears. This is basically venom attacking your eyes in a black, thick alien goop, is it not? Okay, that's 2 Spider-Man references, Kyle. Knock it off. After days of leaking, the eyes begin to rot entirely within the skull, a process sped up by the fungus and excruciatingly painful for the host. At this time, the fungus becomes mobile, and individual threads and tentacles gain mobility around the face and eyes. Guys? They move around the subject's face in seemingly random patterns, and once the fungus begins moving on its own, subjects report their vision returning. But how can they see if they don't have eyes? The fungus appears to have photosensitive cells as well as a poorly understood ability to interface with optic nerves and brain cells. Subjects begin to use vision in very different ways, and in some cases even say their vision is enhanced, seeing more spectrums of color and shape. And this is the scary part. Whenever a human with normal, uncontaminated eyes enters the SCP-679's field of vision, subjects experience terrifying hallucinations, all of which seem to drive the host closer and closer to the possible new host. Once a new host is in range, the mycelia reach out and grab the uninfected human's eyes and latch onto the new face. That's terrifying. Like just reaching out from your face to another face trying to find a new host. Basically just trying to find a new set of eyes to feed on. Treatment has been limited by time, and only persons infected within the incubation time have a chance of cauterizing and surgery. The organism is highly contagious and escapes via security constantly. Okay, so like, who are we supposed to call if we find these things? Like, someone's got tentacles out of their face running down the street like Beetlejuice. I need to know who I'm calling. Is there an area code? And coming in at number 1, SCP-1233. This last one makes me scratch my head. I've looked at some of the anomalous space data in the past couple years and have correlated my own homework into some terrifying discoveries. SCP-1233 is a humanoid entity of unknown origin which visually resembles an individual wearing an EMU-2 type spacesuit with clear visors and attached vehicular propulsion jetpacks. The equipment and suit worn by 1233 exhibits a number of anomalous properties. The suit itself has shown durability far exceeding that of a standard spacesuit. Anomaly has had firearms, anti-tank munitions, landmines, white phosphorus munitions, and in one instance total submersion in magma without sustaining any observable damage or decrease in functionality. The suit material, although physically based on NASA engineering, is made out of a material alien to our known universe at this time. 1233's physical strength is correspondingly anomalous. It has demonstrated the ability to lift and throw objects weighing up to 60,000 pounds and can do so repeatedly without showing an external sign of fatigue in defiance of multiple physical laws. This is why this subject is not only unattainable, it's physically impossible to host such an anomaly against its will. 1233 is capable of communicating through a loudspeaker installed in its suit, and does so in a loud, grandiloquent, and declamatory male voice, demonstrating fluency in multiple human languages, and adjusts its speech to conform with whatever language is most commonly spoken by the populace. Sounds like one of those gods our ancients were telling us about, no? Its statements are generally coherent in structure, but are frequently ramblings irrelevant to the present simulation and lacking context. Basically the ramblings of a drunk Superman. Although the phenomena only known as SCP-1233 is rendered harmless and almost friendly, the destruction caused by its simple nature of living can be quite nuclear. The anomaly is usually seen by radar and observatories venturing our atmosphere every 4 to 5 years with a trajectory from the moon. The anomaly claims that its visits are driven by curiosity and status of the galaxy. Okay, so that sounds pretty helpful. Guys at Green Lantern! Satellite Observation Network Argos 1 is to enter Priority 2 High Alert status when Argos 2 detects SCP-1233 in the upper thermosphere. An automated response from any nearby covert facility and disinformation mobile task force will be dispatched to the population center closest to 1233's descent trajectory. After the entity's departure from Earth's orbit, all appearances of damages caused by 1233 are to be accounted for with suitable cover-ups, and in conjunction with media blackouts, and any civilians having witnessed an overt display of effects are to be brainwashed via popular news stations and related sources. Disinformation? City blackouts? Could this Keter phenomenon be related to the UFO mysteries NASA's still hiding? Sounds pretty similar, no?